Hey everyone, Kevin here. Not since the Great Recession in 2008 have we really had layoffs in education, the dreaded pink slip for all those who remember that incredibly difficult time for teachers. Tens of thousands of us were let go due to that enormous economic downturn. Well, guess what? They're back, and they're back with a vengeance. We were already grappling with an intense teacher recruitment and retention crisis that wasn't being properly addressed, and now we have thousands more personnel actually being laid off on top of that. I'm being genuinely honest here when I say there's never been a worse time to be in public education. Plus, we've been saying for years now that this was coming, and the system is now finally starting to see those small cracks on its windshield grow into the massive ones that spider out all across the glass. We recorded a podcast episode about this already, not out yet at time of this recording, and the number of layoffs across the country have only grown since. On that podcast episode, we talked about multiple districts across California, Texas, and New York who were already notifying staff that positions were being eliminated, including my father-in-law, by the way. But in just the last week since then, Oregon, Alaska, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Ohio are also reporting significant layoffs now as well. At time of recording, there is still 2 weeks left before the Ides of March deadline of March 15th when layoff notices must be given out by. You might be asking though, why is this happening now? Well, that's actually a pretty easy question to answer. Virtually every district in the nation is suffering from deficits numbering in the tens of millions of dollars. But that still begs the question of why is that? Well, that's also a pretty easy question to answer. COVID relief funds, better known as Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, or ESSER funds, are finally ending in June. Those funds were sent to schools for any number of things due to the pandemic and the need for more digital technology during school closures, and have been going on much longer than people thought they were. As I said, they're only just now ending in a couple of months. That, in and of itself, isn't the issue, though. The problem is that administrators and school boards, in their infinite wisdom, have built their budgets around ESSER funds these last several years. Here's the hiccup with that plan, though: ESSER funds are bonuses. They were never part of the normal funding being allocated to school districts. I just can't stress to you how freaking asinine that is. You don't organize anything around bonuses. And see if you can follow my logic here. They aren't part of your normal budget. Has no one seen the movie Christmas Vacation, for heaven's sake? You see the fallout from doing that in the movie where Clark writes a check for a swimming pool to be added in his backyard that he couldn't cover because he just figured his Christmas bonus would as soon as it came in. Well, guess what? It didn't, and he was angry despite being the one who planned a major life event around something that was never guaranteed in the first place. Plus, ESSER funds have been repeatedly misused across the country because there has been so little oversight of them since 2020. They've been used for everything from upping administrator salaries to building entirely new campuses, even though everyone is paradoxically suffering from declining enrollment right now, which also hurts district budgets by a significant margin, by the way. So let's see. Blowing money on everything they can think of, even when they don't need it, and thinking that the money would never run out. Now why on earth does that sound so familiar? Oh yeah, the Roaring Twenties, ironically being the same decade we're in now again, and the thing I taught history students about? I guess our admins and school boards were asleep during those lessons in school, and their screw-ups have ruined the careers of so many quality people, many of them filling other roles in the school system too. Remember how I said my father-in-law was part of these growing layoffs? He isn't a teacher. He's been a committed school security officer for over 25 years. In fact, his district has laid off all of their security staff and is now going to just call 911 with security concerns. Yeah, considering how violent students are now and how that's a leading reason why teachers were resigning prior to these layoffs, I can't see anything going wrong from removing school security. I mean, that's such a totally bright idea, isn't it? And along with security officer, the hardest hit are librarians, who have been now generally eliminated as a whole. All nurses, creating health concerns now, language and special education aides, media support personnel, and office staff like secretaries, who actually are the unsung heroes who keep most schools running on a day to day basis from a managerial standpoint. Add on top of that the hundreds of teachers being laid off too, and you can just see how much public education is finally starting to fall apart. Something that, as I said earlier, we have been warning people about for a long time. And realistically, we need to let the system fail at this point, even when knowing that would make the situation even worse than it already is for the people who've managed to keep their jobs. Ultimately, though, what you will see is increasing class sizes, fewer opportunities to help students or who are struggling, even more violent campuses, and an overall downgrade in the quality of educational services provided to our kids, like no longer having a librarian and instead employing lower quality assistants to take their place who don't have the training. We've already seen this with the fast track credentials I mentioned in another video last fall. In the end, this is their fault too. Administrators and school boards have placed the profession in this position. Their financial mismanagement has crippled public education even more because they were relying on COVID relief funds to keep them afloat, which was an idiotic concept from the very beginning. Even an audit report out of Amityville School District on Long Island has showed, and I quote, loose to no controls, wild overspending, and zero oversight. And we see this everywhere. Fort Worth ISD in Texas has a $43.6 million deficit. San Diego Unified here in California has a $70 million deficit. And districts across Alaska and Ohio are showing tens of millions of dollars in deficits too. I don't know how we keep putting people in charge who have no concept of how not to blow money on things they don't need and instead resort to laying off people to balance their checkbook. For instance, you know what my father in law's district did in the exact same meeting that they voted to approve the layoffs, by the way? They renewed their shaved ice food truck license. And they did it before voting on the layoffs, which they conveniently kept until the very end so they could just hurry through and be done with the meeting so they could vote and ignore public outcry about it. If that doesn't show you how deep rooted this problem is, I don't know what will. At this point, I don't know what else to say beyond if you are among those affected by these layoffs and need help, or you would like some more information about this, or better yet, are an administrator who needs help with doing simple math, I'm always here to help. See you next time.